Good morning. Welcome to Southeastern 16's SEC Power Rankings. I'm your host, Chris Lee, joined by Jay Greason, Graham Doty. We're heading into Week 11. I cannot believe we are into Week 11, heading into Weekend 7 of conference play. We had a crazy weekend. Hard to know how to react to it. We dug in. We submitted our individual power rankings. We tallied them up, and we'll see how they come out today. So thank you for joining us. Remember, if you're catching this late or can't hear the end of it, you can always catch it on the channel later. We got all the replays there. You can catch those at your convenience, and you can catch these on your favorite podcast channel. Hope you'll do that and leave us a nice review and rating. That helps us get noticed. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me post-Easter weekend. Appreciate you guys being here. Let's dive right into power rankings. And we will go to 16, where we've been for a while. Missouri at 16. Got run ruled by Oklahoma in 3 games this weekend. The Tigers have scored, I'll check it, 72 runs in league play, have given up exactly 214. Could be headed towards a winless season. Hope not for the sake of Carrick Jackson and Missouri, but been a tough one. We'll move on to South Carolina, go ahead. Sorry.
We actually have an intriguing Missouri storyline, even if we have no Missouri fans in the chat. Because I think they've got a midweek game that I may be the most interested in, and it's against Missouri State, and it's tomorrow night. But Sam Horn's going to get the ball for the first time in more than 2 years since a really nasty Tommy John injury. Not only was he highly regarded, he's also in the finalists to be their quarterback in the fall. This is actually something worth watching if you're a Missouri baseball fan, which I don't know if we've said that on this show in my short time being here.
That's a great call. I had forgotten about that. And he pitched, I think, the first weekend on campus. He pitched like they had a tournament out in Texas or Arizona or somewhere. I remember watching him pitch. That's about the last time he pitched. But yeah,
it was February of 2023. He had 3 strikeouts in an inning and a third, and he blew his arm out.
Yeah. Well, and also this. Missouri is 5-0 in midweeks since the league started. 0-18 in the conference, 5-0 in midweeks. Now, look, they have not played a meat grinder of a midweek schedule, but again, that points a little bit to what this league is.
All right, that's all I got, and that's all I'm going to have on Missouri until they turn the gear in.
Well, we get to number 15. Let me find my banners here. South Carolina, which beat Ole Miss 2 of 3 this weekend behind a terrific start from Brandon Stone in game 1. And we mentioned this earlier, Exhibit D on how tough the league is. And let me just fact check this to make sure it still holds after the overnight updates. But unless this has changed, and RPI a little slow to load this morning. It's making Oreo anxious, you can tell, I'm sure. South Carolina, excuse me. My time stalling skills need some improvement here. South Carolina this morning checks in at number 51 in the RPI, despite a 4-14 record in the SEC. And again, I think this is the only team in the country that does not have a loss in Quad 2, Quad 3, or Quad 4. The problem, 4-18 in Quad 1.
So how did they drop? How do you go from 49 to 51 when you take 2 out of 3?
That's a good question. I think I have an answer to that. I'm going to fact check you on that too, by the way.
I just know before the weekend they were 49, and then now they're 51. It doesn't make sense, but it was a good weekend for South Carolina. Here's what I'll say about South Carolina. Like, they're not awful by any means. It's just people just have a little bit more talent than them. So this was a big weekend for them. Like, they had the spring football game, a lot of people there. The weather was good. And this was really one of their first weekends where everything just seemed to click for them. Nathan Hall had a really, really good weekend against Ole Miss, and they got the pitching performance by Stone. Maybe this will give them a little bit of juice moving forward. But, you look at the standings, and they're still 2 behind Florida and Mississippi State, and Florida is now red hot. They've won 2 series in a row.
And I think we got to be pretty careful. I know it's the metric that we have out there, but the RPI, if I'm reading it right, it's got a whole lot of flaws in its metrics, because Georgia's still ranked over Texas. If I'm reading it right, aren't they 1 and 2 in the RPI on the NCAA.org?
Yes, and in that order. And I've got a couple things, because there was a thing I wanted to mention on Missouri too. And by the way, South Carolina entered conference play 18 in the RPI following the 4th week of baseball. By the way, last week, after it beat South Carolina upstate and lost 3 games at A&M, it was 54. So it actually improved 3 spots after the whole week. Now, again, the numbers day to day jumped around a little bit, but South Carolina was 54 in the RPI exiting last weekend, so did get a little bit of a boost this week. I think, and this is the other part, I think it's going to explain some of this, okay? You mentioned Georgia. Where did Georgia lose its games, Jay?
They're on the road, without question.
Lost them in Nashville.
And Graham, to your point, the one thing we can't control is they had a great weekend, but there could have been teams 50 through 54 who may have gone to Wake Forest and taken 2 of 3. They may have gone to Kansas and taken 2 of 3, and we don't know outside the best conference in baseball exactly what have happened. So when you're down that far, the shell pieces may move around you that could cause you to drop more so than anything you did.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you another thing too, guys. Here we go. Missouri heading into SEC play was 241 in the RPI. Now, we know Missouri is 0-18 since. It exited the weekend at Arkansas, where it got beaten by scores of 21-3, 14-4, and 16-3. It exited that weekend at 151. So it had already moved up almost 90 spots just by playing an SEC schedule. It then lost at Florida, 11-2, 5-0, and 3-2. Beat SIU Edwardsville in the midweek. Only fell to 156. And then last week, after beating Missouri State and then losing all 3 games in run rule fashion against Oklahoma, it moved to 153 in the RPI.
Well, I stand by my original talking point. Maybe we get to it when we get to the upper tiers of this league. Baseball RPI can't be factored in the same way as basketball RPI, because basketball coaches look at every game, whether you're playing. If you're Bruce Pearl, you're looking at Alabama State the same way you're looking at Alabama. You don't want to lose a single one. Baseball coaches aren't the same way. So a quad 4 or a quad 3 loss is not a big deal, or not as big a deal if you're running through making certain every guy in your bullpen gets an inning. But if you're looking at the college baseball RPI, and not only are the top 6 teams all in the SEC, the best team in the country is 2, the second best team in the country is 5, and maybe the third best team in the country is 6. And Vandy and Auburn and Georgia are ahead of Arkansas and LSU. That's just got to be – all right, we've got to look at the formula in a way that – I'm not saying you write the formula to prove the results, but these results tell me the formula is not accurate.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've never really liked RPI. I'll see if they'll – like with the net in basketball, they use quads, right? They don't really look at the record for – they don't look at so much as like what's your net ranking. What they look at is what did you do in quads. Quads are used to group opponents. And so I hope that's kind of what they'll do here. And you get some interesting stuff when we dive into that too, which we may later. But I'm with you. I don't I don't really care a whole lot for RPI as the measure, but it's the measure they use.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Yeah.
It's the
We're
stick
on the
we
same
have.
team here. Yeah, right.
I mean, when I was 8 years old, we all walked to the plate with a Tennessee Thumper in our hand because that was the bat we had. If you did that now, you'd be laughed out of the ballpark because they've got better bats. So, and to that end, though, I don't want this tangent to take away from what is really the best weekend in South Carolina baseball and since Clemson. I mean, Clemson broke them in a lot of ways. Weren't they 13-0? And then they play Clemson all over the state and they get swept and felt like the lug nuts loosened a little bit. And this was, as Graham rightly noted, this was a wonderful weekend in Columbia.
Mm-hmm. It really was. And you just got to wonder if they can build off that. And South Carolina, they just have success against Ole Miss at home. Again, Ole Miss has never won the series in Columbia against South Carolina in program history. One more thing before we move on. You guys, I agree with everything you said about RPI. It seems to matter more in college baseball. I did look up the committee, by the way. I don't have to dive deep into it here, but there's only one SEC member on the committee for college baseball to pick and choose like which team goes where for the regionals. And it's Scott Strickland, the AD at Florida. He's the only SEC representative. There's only one baseball person on the committee that played college baseball.
Wow.
Who's
who else
that?
is on
Strickland?
it? If you know,
did he play college baseball?
No, it's definitely not Scott Strickland. It is Jeremy Macklin. He's the AD at Southern Miss. I don't know him very well. You know, I've shook his hand, said, hey, you know, a few times, but he played college baseball at Delta State, which is a really good D2 program in Mississippi. So that's your only person that has baseball experience on the committee.
We ready to move to 14?
We are.
I think, and you kind of have to put them there based on results, and it's a little complicated. They've been awful on defense and just have not won the big series in league play. Just for something interesting, I still think this is a better team than the record has shown. If you do Pythagorean record, which is kind of a common thing that you do at the major league level, that always reflects your winning and losing pretty accurately. And I don't know that I buy it as much in college because some of this gets propped up by, you know, beating Morehead State 20-2 and blowing teams out because it's based on how much you score and how much you give up. But according to a little modified version of this I've run, Mississippi State is 5 wins better than its win-loss record, where most of the SEC teams are within a game or two of what they're supposed to be. So also one more thing, they are the second best team in the league in terms of the pitching staff allowing the fewest runners on base behind Texas.
Go
ahead, Graham.
Okay. I was just going to say, like, you remember the talking points for us before this weekend, this series, it's like, this is kind of like a loser leaves town match. Like, this was such a big series for both of these teams. And I mean, got like game 1, it was all Florida. Like, they won big. And then games 2 and game 3 were kind of like seesaw battles back and forth. And if you're Mississippi State, the bullpen let them down this weekend and the defense. And I mean, like, State had a lot of momentum. Like, they were playing good, they were on a roll, and then this happens, and you just kind of wonder what it's going to look like the rest of the way moving forward for them. And for Florida, their schedule is pretty easy SEC wise the rest of the way. So, I mean, the Gators started. They were 1-11 at one point, and they've only have dropped 1 game since then. So Florida is looking to do kind of like what they did a season ago. So just like they pushed a button, and now they're kind of playing to the level that everybody anticipated.
Yay or nay? True or which way we going on a Monday in our power rankings? Is Mississippi State in the NCAA tournament? Yay or nay?
Not today.
Yeah, not right now. Not right now.
What about a month from now?
Here's your schedule.
I think they got Mizzou, and then they got Ole Miss at home. I know those.
Well, it's Auburn. I think is it Auburn at home? No, Auburn on the road, Kentucky at home, Ole Miss at home at Missouri.
Gang,
So
hey,
I'll give them.
So give them
there's 7
3.
wins in those 12 games.
Well, you know they're getting 3.
Yep. You've said
The resume. Okay, here it
Ole
is.
Miss always struggles in Starkville.
Yeah, they do. No
Yeah.
doubt about it.
Here it is by quads: 4-13, 2-2, 5-1, 13-0. And by the way, I apologize. We may have a delay here between me and you guys.
Well, and because this is the conversation in this tier. South Carolina's dug too deep a hole, in my opinion.
Correct.
But from Mississippi State to maybe outside the top 6, it is how many of these teams are positioning for how many spots. Because right now the power rankings, I mean, I felt like I was trying to work through a Rubik's Cube. And,
Yeah.
I mean, after 1 and above 15 and 16, everything felt like a 2-tier sandwich for me. And, I mean, I'm not going to argue with anybody that has anybody different from 2 to 5 or 6 and from 7 to here. Now, you're not going to have 4. You're going to have Mississippi State 8, but I also am not ruling Mississippi State out. But one of the things that we talked about, power may or may not travel. If your bullpen's spotty and your defense is sketchy, man, those are not compliments.
Yeah. I just didn't have this coming. Like, we all picked them. I think we all picked them to win. At least I know I did.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't get it done. And like Florida, for whatever reason, they just play well in Starkville. Like, they got a winning record all time in Starkville, and the Gators have won 7 of 8. So maybe this says more about Florida, but I mean, I thought State would just look and play better than what it looked like over the weekend.
By the way, correction, State is behind Tennessee, tied for Texas in terms of base runners allowed by the pitching staff. That goes into weekends too. But it's just, it's a weird team. And I thought I was not as high on State as a lot of the national guys before the season, but I still look at the roster, think there's some, plenty of ability, plenty good enough to make a regional if State gets hot, which RPI is still in range. But here's the weird thing, guys. We talked about Pico Cone is one of the best Friday night starters in the league. Texas in the SEC now is 2-5. Mississippi State now in the SEC is 2-5 in game ones in the league.
Just because he didn't get a lot of help offensively. Right. I mean, he's been great. He just doesn't get a lot of help. I think one of those wins was against Oklahoma and Kyson, right? And like a super low,
like a 3-2 game that took 78 minutes.
Yeah. So one of those wins was that one.
But in the big picture conversation about teams you don't want to see, boy, oh boy, if they're a salty 3 and figure out a way to steal game 2 and they're going at the 1 seed and hand the ball to Pico on Saturday, buckle up with that.
Their issue is defense. I mean, it's kind of one of these always something situations. Like, it feels like they don't get timely hits in tight games that they've lost a lot of. They've got the worst fielding percentage in the league in SEC games, and they've given up the second most stolen bases to a team we'll mention later.
Yeah. It's mostly the shortstop position. I mean, that has been the if you struggle there defensively, like, you're going to have nightmares.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's move on. I didn't think we were going to spend 19 minutes on the bottom 3, but there was some interesting stuff there to talk about. I think this team, Florida, if you pick the the NCAA tournament field today, my guess is Florida is going to be a 3 somewhere. Florida is now up to 23 in the RPI. It is 6-12 in the league. got some work to do. The Gators, boy. Alabama, okay, it's more manageable than I thought. Alabama, South Carolina, Texas, and Arkansas. Arkansas and Alabama are in Gainesville, it appears, if I'm reading the schedule right. But going to Mississippi State and winning 2 out of 3 really gave the RPI a boost. Mm-hmm. And again, I do think that Florida's got some injury excuses built in that would resonate with me.
Yeah, but you got to win these games, and that's what they're doing. So they don't make the schedule. You play the schedule you're dealt. So they sweep Mizzou, and then they go on the road and take 2 or 3 in a tough environment. So winners of 7 of 8, maybe once they start to get healthy, they can hang there with anybody. But, I mean, we all know they're talented. Just kind of wonder what it would look like maybe mentally when things don't go your way, especially with Sully as the head coach. So, I don't know. It just seems like they're talented, and it just seems like they're playing with a lot of confidence right now.
You said a couple of things there that are although Oklahoma's Wes May referenced your representative on the committee right there.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting point and one to follow for sure. 2 things I think we need to cover, and I know we're dragging on because I'm long-winded and shocker, I actually did research this week. The first, I think Kevin O'Sullivan, if he had it do over again, would not have shared as much frustration in that early season time. And it was frustrating for everybody. The injuries, they weren't playing well. The bats went relatively quiet, but that resonates from the top. And a young team, the last thing they needed when maybe their best player in the locker room was a freshman pitcher named Aiden King, the last thing they need is their leader to be visibly upset on broadcast and talking into a scorebook. But secondly, and we can't underplay this, and I feel obligated to say it if Alvar's not here, we got February Brody Donay this weekend. I mean, he went 15 games without a homer.
Yeah.
And this weekend, he looked like he was playing slow pitch softball.
Yeah, he was one of the big storylines in the league.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say he was one of the storylines in the league, like the first, 2 to 3 weeks of the season. So if he plays like that, that gives them even more juice moving forward, especially with some of the other guys they got, like Lawson. I think it's safe to say Lawson's going to make the SEC freshman team. And if they hold on to him, like what a bright future he's got. So they got the pieces, and especially if they get healthy, they can pile up some more wins here.
Their issue is going to be they are 5-14 in quad 1. Now they've only got 1 loss outside of quad 1, and that's a quad 2 loss where they're 4-1. Also, and I would be emphasizing this if I were Florida. You've taken 2 out of 3 against Florida State. Those are all in midweeks. And the losses, I mean, they've been swept by Georgia, swept by Vandy, swept by Tennessee. That can happen to a lot of teams. So I think that's what's hurting them. But I think right now, and again, this is going to be one of those situations where you want to watch and see, like, can a 12 and 18 team get in? Because if Florida goes 6-6 the rest of the way, that's what Florida will be. And my guess is it's going to be a tournament-worthy team. Whether it gets in, I don't know. And as Wes points out, maybe the most important thing is you'll have your AD on the committee. So
yep, that's the big thing. Bingo right there.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to, hey, guess what? We got a sponsor this week, Chair Bundy. And I am excited about this stuff. Let me tell you, because they have sent me a boatload of product. If you are working out, if you're dealing with inflammation, if you need better sleep, they have got an array of stuff that will work for you. Chair Bundy has natural products. It has ingredients with no added sugar. And let me show you some of the stuff. You've got a tart cherry juice drink. You've got a concentrate packet, and you've got sleep gummies, which I'm going to try those. Tart cherries are the highest antioxidant fruit or vegetable in the world. That means it's good for you, Jay Greason. Natural anti-inflammatory with incredible benefits, less soreness, increased recovery. Looking forward to using this on a jog today or after a jog because that's becoming an issue to me. Naturally occurring melatonin to improve your sleep, and it supports natural immunity. It is used by nearly 500 collegiate and pro sports teams. Nearly any NFL team, it says every NFL team. So every NFL team uses this, guys. 10 of the last 11 Super Bowl champs use it. Every team playing in Europe or Brazil this season had Cherry Bunny with them. 66 of the 67 Power 4 college football teams use this stuff. Don't know who the one would be. And every NCAA football and basketball national champion since 2007 has used Cherry Bunny. So I've got a bunch of this. Cannot wait to try it to help me with my recovery from exercise. You can get the products on Amazon, cherrybunny.com, and at retailers nationwide, including Publix and Kroger. What you need to do, go to cherrybunny.com, use the promo code SE20. That gets you 20% at checkout. Use that at checkout, 20% off. Help out the folks who help us here try their products, and I'm very much looking forward to doing that myself. Just got my stuff in the mail this weekend and eager to try it after exercise.
What is this jogging thing you're talking about?
It's a thing you do to get your exercise, Jay Greason. That's still a thing around here.
Well, I'm gonna give it a go because in our house, pork rinds are a health food. So, I mean, anything that'll help, you know. I mean, dear Lord, I lived hard and got put up wet. So,
yeah, well, I've got something for you, Jay Greason, in place of your pork rinds. We'll try it out, see how it works.
I hope it's gonna be you're gonna send me some Cherry Bundy gummies.
We'll work on that. We'll get there. All right. Speaking of work, Kentucky did it. I don't know. I think maybe Kentucky has a case to be a couple spots higher in the power rankings. Hey, guess what? When you've got awesome starting pitching out of Nick McKay, who was just unbelievable in game 2, and then you bring, in my opinion, the best number 3 starter in the league on to finish off the Vols in Knoxville. That was Ben Cleaver, who was outstanding. Got an ERA at 287 in the 3-year-old, guys. Don't sleep on Kentucky. Kentucky is doing what Kentucky does every year. That is giving people headaches with style of play. It is throwing guys out there who can keep the ball on the ground. And it went into Knoxville and shocked Tennessee in a series win that I didn't see coming.
I don't know if any of us saw it, Graham. And heck, I don't even know if Kentucky saw it. The stat I saw was this is Kentucky's first series win in Knoxville in almost a decade. 2016 was the last time they did this. And to your point, man, oh man, when you've got 2s and 3s like Nick and the meat cleaver chopping people up in game 3, you feel confident no matter what happens on Friday night. That's a team built for a weekend series, whether it's early May in an SEC town or on the road in late May come NCAA tournament stuff. I tell you, I think they may be well, granted, Georgia's going to get to play at home in the first round. I don't know. If you're talking in a neutral site, I think I'd rather play Georgia than Kentucky.
I would too, just because Kentucky plays so differently.
I'm sorry, I flipped that. I'd rather yes.
You got it right. I'm with you on that.
I'm all worked up about these gummies that are apparently in the mail.
Well, here's what's interesting: that they have now their 2 biggest road series. They've won at A&M, took 2 out of 3, and now took 2 out of 3 in Knoxville. Lost to Texas, 2 out of 3 at home, although all 3 of those were like right there. They were all 1-run games. Well, one of them was 2 runs. Point is they were close. And then they lost 2 or 3 at Auburn at home. So,
and all of those were 1-run games.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a fluke or they're better on the road, but in any case, they're a nightmare if you get them on the wrong weekend.
Well, look at this. You just kind of ran through their schedule a little bit. So their schedule has been brutal. So their first 6 SEC series, all against top 15 teams. Their first 6. and their record where they are 8-10. So, 2 games under 500, but a bounce of a ball here or there, like they're 500 or they got a winning record. Like the Ole Miss series guys, they had the lead in every inning but 2 in the Ole Miss series, and Ole Miss took that series. That's hard to do. So that, again, that kind of gives you an idea of what Kentucky does. So against Tennessee, like one thing they did, and I think you're going to see more teams try to do this against the Vols. Kentucky just stole a bunch of bases. They had 16 stolen bases, and Tennessee just didn't really have an answer for it. Like, remember when Ole Miss played Tennessee? Ole Miss had 5 stolen bases in an inning. They had 8 in one game. So, I mean, that seems to be like the recipe against Tennessee. If they want to do something about it, we'll see. But that is in Kentucky's wheelhouse. They like to steal bases, sack punts, sack flies, all that. Not a lot of teams in this league do that. So, and just they play with an edge. They're chippy. I'm a believer like a team has the identity of their head coach, and Mingione is kind of like a fiery guy, and that's what this Kentucky group is. So they're not going to be intimidated by anybody. They're strong mentally, and they're going to be in the mix here the rest of the way.
I agree with all of that, Graham. And then I'll add this, and this is something moving forward. They want to play in that pressure cooker because, like so many things in sports, if you develop a trait and you get more comfortable in those environments, Kentucky is the most comfortable team in this league, even more so than Texas, in a tie game in the 8th or 9th inning, because they feel supremely confident in their ability to manufacture one run with a walk, with a hit by pitch. And we see so many of these other teams who are going to need an Andrew Fisher or one of their sluggers to hit one into the left center field seats. So, man, that's a trait that travels right there. Being comfortable in a tie game as they're playing take me out to the ball game on the road is a admirable and learned skill set.
That's what makes them tough. I mean, like, you wouldn't want to play them on a neutral field, home, away, like wherever. Like they're just really going to grind it out. And what makes them so difficult to play.
Yeah, and it's matchups too, guys. They've got 8 lefties that have thrown at least 10 innings this year too. And plus they got Harris and Rouse. I mean, they do that. They've stolen 90 bases. They've now got 4 guys in double digits. And we talk about it every year. Like, Nick Mingione kind of knows how he wants to build his team. He wants to have pitchers that keep the ball on the ground. He wants to have a bunch of them. He wants to mix and match. He wants to run on you. And like you said, old. And, you don't know who the guys are coming in to the season, but you get to know who they are at the end of the year. And that seems to be where they're headed right now. All right, let's see. What have we got next? We've got Alabama at 11. Hard team to figure. I think we've had a hand injury this weekend coming out to Justin LeBron. Starting pitching has been an issue. I still think this is a really good team, but it's hit a little bit of a rough patch of late.
I think this is a team that honestly is not as good as its parts. And that's not a compliment. And some of those parts, and Graham has been all over this for the last 2+ weeks, behind LeBron has been kind of a little bit of a black hole. And to that end, he may start pressing, and teams can then try to make him hit their pitch, which has led to some offensive stagnation. But you're right, Chris, the starting pitching has been erratic. And, I mean, being 11th in the SEC normally means you're going to be 20th in the nation. So it's not like it's an indictment, but somebody's got to be there, Graham.
Yeah. I think we just kind of got spoiled by them offensively, the first month. And like Jay just said, they're now 11th in team batting average, 287. So, like, to me, it just kind of seems like for Bama, it's matchup dependent on what their offense will look like. They really needed Game 3, and they look good in Game 3 and Alex Box to take that. So maybe that'll give them something to build off of. They're still in good shape. I mean, 31-10, 500 in league play. So maybe a little bit better than what everybody was anticipating at this point, preseason wise for them. But I mean, this is still, an NCAA tournament team.
Yeah, I think their issue is Cade Snell's been the guy that's carried them in the SEC in offense. And I'm trying to look up LeBron's game log right now because I feel like there's been a very pronounced decline of late. In fact, let me look at this. He went this weekend, one hit. He has had one hit in his last 5 SEC starts. Has not had a multi-hit game in his last 7. So, again, when a guy starts seeing his productivity go down dramatically and he's a great player, I always wonder, is there something else going on? And to me, I would keep an eye on that because there was it a hand injury this weekend that came to light? And it was, and here's the thing that really stuck out. It was not he got hit. It was Graham. Was it you that saw it?
Yeah. So I was watching it live.
A swing. Yeah.
Yeah. He did not get hit by a pitch. It's just, kind of took one inside and then had the grimace on his face. And, like when your hand is asleep and you shake it, that's what he was doing. And the athletic trader came out, Rob Baldwin came out, and, he finished the game and stayed in there. But when you see things like that, the alarm bells go off a little bit.
Well, hopefully Alabama gets him some Chernobyl. Get him a couple of gummies in there.
We'll send those to Tuscaloosa. I'm not sure if they help with that or not, but we can find out. All right. Number 10. I got an issue with this, guys. I had A&M a couple spots higher. I get it. I don't have a huge issue with it because everything you've done, your body work, has got to matter.
Yeah.
But my goodness, let's recap the last few weekends for the Aggies, shall we? Following being swept at Vanderbilt, the Aggies play Kentucky at home, lose the series 3-2 in a close one, and then out of nowhere go to Knoxville, beat Tennessee, sweep South Carolina in College Station with 2 grand slams in Game 3 there to come from behind to win, and then take 2 of 3 at Arkansas this weekend. Aggies have also won their last 8 straight midweek, 7 straight. 8 straight, excuse me. So team playing well outside of the league too, which points a little bit to pitching depth, which I'm still not sold on, but they are really putting up some runs on some midweek teams. Aggies would be in the tournament, I think, today if it's picked.
Yeah,
I think so too. Yeah. And they're also wearing a little bit of the Carolina blue or the Kentucky name on the front of the jersey in the eyes of the committee. I mean, and that's going to matter. So they've repositioned themselves into a place of maintain. Can they still have that sense of desperation? Can they still have what was motivated by what we said a month ago? A lot of guys playing for their pocketbook more than their the guy sitting next to them in the locker room when it felt like a black hole in College Station? I think so. And this is a scary baseball team, and there is no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. I mean, we take a step back, and they may have the most draftable dudes on a roster of anybody in the country. So,
yeah.
But you didn't send out your text message asking us for the power rankings of the last 3 weeks. What happened in March has to come into this, because if we're doing a power ranking, not that the committee's ever going to be universally right, they'd be lucky to get a 2 seed right now.
Well, and remember this too, Caden Sorrell has had 62 plate appearances, so he missed roughly the first 7-8 weeks, whatever that was. Since he's come back, he's hitting 346 with a 750 slugging and a 470 on base. Like, you plug that in that remember, that's against mostly a lot of SEC teams and some really good ones. Arkansas, Tennessee would be in there.
Yeah.
You plug that into some games earlier, that's a couple wins for the Aggies, more than likely that they don't have. And I get that they're not the only team that's dealt with an injury to a key player, but just saying.
So Graham, could you make an argument that he's the most valuable player in this league then?
Maybe. I mean, there are a lot of really good ones. I still kind of want to see how things shake out, but yeah, it does make you wonder if he was available from day one, what their record would be. Yeah. Because there's more that goes into it than, the numbers and the stats that you see. Like, what is he like in the clubhouse, locker room, that kind of thing? Do guys like him, feed off his energy? That stuff goes a very long way, especially in a game like baseball. How about this for A&M, though? This is the first time in program history they got wins against the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country on the road. That's never been done prior to this season. So, again, just a totally different team than what we saw. Laviolette, he's homered in now 4 or 5 games in a row. Like, his numbers the first 2 months were way down offensively. And then he's certainly turning around, so kind of playing what we thought he would look like. So A&M is also a team. If the weather doesn't cooperate and you got to play them at a doubleheader, good luck. I mean, that's been their recipe. I mean, they made the most of these doubleheaders, and there was also like a really weird delay in the Arkansas game. Like I see Kyle Green talking about it. Van Horn talked about it a lot in his post-game press conference. Like, they just kind of shut down shop for a little over an hour. And when you get guys hot, like pitching-wise, and then you got to slam on the brakes and just hang out for an hour, like that's an impact on the game.
Well, I think the Sorrell and the Laviolette storylines may intersect. One, I don't think Chase feels like he has to carry it as much as he may have did with the 2 big injuries. I mean, the third baseman and Sorrell both being out, and he felt like he had to do the heavy lifting. And the other part, to your doubleheader, you're seeing guys 8, 9 in a bullpen because it's all the same day. Mm-hmm. I mean, coaches are going to be a lot more hesitant to, even in a spot where you're just coming in to get 1 out or 2 of guys going back-to-back days or a Friday and a Sunday than you are twice on a Saturday. And so when those A&M sluggers can see 7, 8, 9 deep into your bullpen on the second day of a series, and it's a doubleheader, it's going to turn into a launching pad.
All right, here's what I'm watching with them. First, a few weeks ago is, can this team get to the NCAA tournament? I think we're to the point where I would be now probably surprised if A&M didn't make it. RPI exiting the Kentucky series was 107. The last 3 weeks exiting the week, the series win at Tennessee moved A&M up to 60. Sweeping South Carolina home moved A&M up to 49, and this last week, in which it won a midweek game and then took 2 of 3 at Arkansas, moved the Aggies up to 37, and now 8 and 10 in the league. Now, I'm going to give you this. Missouri on the schedule. I'm going to give them 3 there. Question is, what happens if A&M in their other 3 series get 5 out of these 9 somewhere? At Texas, LSU, at Georgia.
Yikes.
That's 16 and 14.
A tough 3, though.
It is, but if you go 5 and 9, to me, that's that may be a hosting team. Now, again, that's what A&M did before that. I know, and usually that would host, especially that is a tough path, but you can't tell me this is not a team capable at after what we have seen recently. And oh, by the way, I think maybe the only team in the conference with its 3 rotation guys each over 50 innings. So durability in the rotation and effectiveness a key thing I look at too. A&M checks that box.
Well, I think they're now moving into the 2 seed nobody wants to see.
Yeah.
I tell you, because I don't think the committee would put SEC on SEC crime in the first 4. But if you're I mean, I don't know who's the best ACC team. If you're a Clemson and they shuttle A&M over there to you, I mean, you're cussing all the way to Howard's Rock.
Yep, no doubt. By the way, Vass makes a really good point in the chat talking about Laviolette. He said Laviolette was pretty open and honest about how he felt a lot of pressure early in the season and during the season because he wanted to have the home run record. And then really ever since he grabbed it, he's kind of taken off, like weight of the world off his shoulders a little bit. So that's
a great point.
Yeah,
I don't know who made it in the chat, but that's an outstanding point.
All right, let's do it with a twist. Power ranking. You got to play anybody in your league in the ballpark this weekend. Who are the teams you least want to face?
Texas.
Where would you put A&M?
Right now, top 3.
Yeah, I think I would too. I think, and arguably too. And Texas is a little different because it's done a lot of its damage at home. The road series are at Missouri, at Kentucky, it won, and at Mississippi State. So it's not like Texas has been bad on the road, but at home that's when they've just been Superman in particular. But A&M, going to Tennessee and Arkansas winning, yeah.
If we're going to do it that way, then I'm going to have to reshuffle my bracket because I don't agree. I don't disagree with Texas A&M top 3, but I'm also going to elevate Tennessee because they got all those hitters and Liam Doyle, and they got dinged because Kentucky went in there and dictated the play of the game. But, I mean, if we've been flabbergasted by how much better Texas was than we may have thought, I don't know if there are 2 better teams 1 through 34 than Texas A&M and Tennessee.
Yeah. Let's see. Next up at number 9, Auburn, which took a tumble after being swept at Texas, which seems is what happens to everybody in Austin. I think 9's a little unfair given Auburn's body of work. Remember, number 4 in the RPI with the number 1 strength of schedule. But Auburn, in my mind, still nothing to worry about. I think you need a little more consistent starting pitching behind Sam Dutton. Christian Chatterton could be that guy with the talent. But I'm not worried about Auburn. I think this is still a really, really good team and probably a host caliber team.
I agree with everything you just said, but they don't check. They would probably be hoping to be this high through the prism you just asked us about Texas A&M. I don't think a lot of teams are scared about playing Auburn on a neutral site. And everybody knows where I went to school, and I've been in Auburn. I've been banging the drum for Butch Thompson, and Ike Irish is as hot as anybody not named Laviolette in this league. So, I mean, but the rest of it, it feels like it's Ike Irish, Sam Dutton, and you're hoping for a scratch-off lottery ticket.
Mm-hmm. Plus, they're going to be fine. Like, going to Texas, that's challenging. So they're back home this weekend. They got State at home this weekend. You got to feel good about that, especially with the way they have been pitching. Dutton was good in game 1. I know they didn't win, but that was I think it was 3-2 game 1. So Dutton's still been good. They've been really, really good at home. So it's going to be a tough matchup for Mississippi State. Again, Auburn's going to be fine. They're definitely in really good position to still host. So,
quick question for the group, because I know I've been Mark Twain today, overly wordy, but who has more desperations this weekend? Auburn at home or Mississippi State?
I think it's State. Okay. Just because they need it more. If they don't get it, I mean, you're looking at not making the tournament. Auburn, I think they're in the tournament no matter what. What's at stake for them is, are they going to play at Plainsman Park or are they going to go on the road?
See, I think you're being a little tough on Auburn, Jay. Let's not forget 0-6 at Georgia and at Texas. And didn't embarrass themselves in several of those games. Those are maybe the 2 toughest venues in the country to win at. is beaten every SEC series so far has been against a team that if I were picking the field, I would put in. Took 2 out of 3 against Vandy, 2 out of 3 at Kentucky, 2 out of 3 against Alabama, and let's not forget a week ago swept LSU. I try not to get too hung up on the last thing we saw, but hey, a week ago, Auburn was the talk of the show. Brant, we will get to that in just a minute because LSU is on the list of teams to come. LSU is not number 8, however. That is Oklahoma, a team that went and just boat raced Missouri, which is you don't really take much away from that. But again, we feel like the Sooners are consistent, found a little better starting pitching, and just a very, very solid team all around.
And now better offensively than they had the little lull, a few weeks ago. But now they look good on offense too. So they got a nice duo of Kyson Witherspoon and Crossland, and then Malachi is a good option to have for Game 3 Sunday matchup. So they are in a really good spot. And again, they got a better record in league play than where they were this time a season ago when they were in the Big 12.
Yeah, and some hitters nobody's talking about. Sam Christensen, Trey Gamble, Jackson Willits have all had really, really good years. The more I watch Oklahoma play, the more I like what that team's got. Okay, let's move to 7. We got Ole Miss, which has had a couple of tough back-to-back weeks, losing at home to Tennessee and then losing 2 out of 3 at South Carolina. I think for Ole Miss, it's just how much pitching can the Rebels cobble together after their big 2 guys.
Well, this is what makes this week fascinating. Ole Miss is one of the few teams, maybe the only team, that hasn't had any movement as far as changing the starting rotation. Will that be different this weekend? Mason Morris he's been lights out, and you just can't waste him, on a Friday. Again, his last 3 outings, he has not thrown a single pitch with the lead. Ole Miss has either been tied or trailing, and so you gotta make it count when he's out there for you. So the offense, when he's been on the mound, hasn't stepped up. Again, Ole Miss, I think they'll be fine, but they got a big matchup. Isn't it Vandy this weekend in Oxford? That is a huge series, and what's on the line for that one? Whoever will win that, I think, would feel really good about hosting. I don't think either of those teams will get a national seed. Maybe Vandy if they win the series, but this is a big series this weekend for both of these teams as far as hosting. So Ole Miss, for me, the thing to watch, if a change is made rotation-wise, what do they do? Do they push Elliott to Game 2? Do they move him to the bullpen? Do they move Mason Nichols to the bullpen? They got options. I'm just curious to see, what it looks like on the mound pitching wise the rest of the way.
With four weekends left, Chris, and they've got Vandy this weekend, which is a terrible matchup because Graham rightly noted sometime last week, Ole Miss is built on long balls and walks, and Vandy is as good as anybody at not giving up either. So, but if they've got Vandy this week in a terrible matchup, then they go to Starkville. Who are their other 2? Because now the question of whether they get to host or not, and hey, to discuss the elephant in the room, and I know guys affiliated with conferences have to walk out of when a team in their conference in the selection committee room have to leave the building or leave the room, but Scott Strickland ain't gonna fight for squat for Ole Miss.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it, not me.
Mm-hmm. He ain't gonna carry a banner, nothing that looks like the Confederate flag. It's got Colonel Reb on it, or any way, shape, or form. I mean, hey, the only flag he's got on it is 2 birds, and they reside in these hands. So, I mean, but I'm curious. I'm curious who else they got, because Ole Miss is now in that tier of, hey, we need a couple 3 more wins now and steal a series or 2 so that we're sleeping in our own bed and getting to play in front of our home fans.
Yeah, the series in order: Vanderbilt at Oklahoma, at Mississippi State, and Auburn. I think the one thing that Ole Miss, well, I don't know, the win over Kentucky on the road now looks better, and beating Florida in its park too looks better. I think Florida, again, if I were picking field today, an NCAA tournament team, but what you really could use is a marquee SEC win, series win. I think getting Vandy or Auburn and Oxford, or getting one at Oklahoma would be that. So you get a couple there. And I think the magic number for Ole Miss, 10 SEC wins. I think you get to 13, you're probably getting in the field. It means you just got to win 3 games the next 4 weekends. 4 and you're fine.
I think
so Ole Miss has put itself, yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about what do they got to do to get one in Oxford?
The RPI has fallen to 22. So they got some work to do, but again, I think you win 3 of those 4 series, unless you swept one of them, that probably does it.
No, that's easier said than done, but
yeah,
I mean, certainly doable. But like, to me, this is kind of like, I guess, the crossroads in the Ole Miss season. Like, if you're going to make a change, like, this is kind of the point where you would do it, or does he just ride it out, stick with what he's been doing, and see if it works?
Number 6, the Georgia Bulldogs. Did not expect to see Georgia at 6 this week after what it did to Arkansas last week, an Arkansas team that had been as hot as anybody in the country. Georgia, of course, had come off getting swept at Texas, which begs some questions now. Georgia has been swept in 2 road series at Vandy and at Texas, 2 teams that are as good in terms of pitching, throwing strikes, and keeping you in the ballpark as anybody in the country. That's been problematic. And then the other road series at boat race Florida at a time where Florida was kind of struggling a bit. So, I think the road home splits with Georgia are where a lot of people have questions. I don't know how many answers you really get between now and the end of the year either, because Georgia's last 2 road series are at Missouri, which will tell us nothing, and then at Alabama, which is not a top shelf pitching staff, albeit not a bad one.
I think you're muted, Joe.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had a cough there. I needed to mute because I'm just now learning these modern technologies. It's fun. Not only do those not tell you a great deal, then the other 2 are at home. I mean, this is a team that could be 6, and we're all victims to recency bias, I guess, in some ways. But Vandy just took all 3. How are they not? How would you not have Vandy above them? Because, I mean, Georgia's 1 in the RPI and 6 in our power poll. Now, that could be a stone you want to throw at our power poll, and that's fine. It could also be the stones we threw earlier. Feel free to rewind the chat and start from the beginning. But the RPI also flawed. But there's no team that needs a national seed more than Georgia. Needs a national seed. Because if they can get the first 2 rounds in Foley Field, then I'm not betting against them to get to Omaha. If they got to go on the road for either 2 rounds, I'm not betting on them to get to Omaha. So the last 2 weeks set up pretty well for them to sprint and need to put the foot on the accelerator. They've got like Mississippi State desperation if they're looking at it big picture about wanting to get back to Omaha.
Yeah. And they got A&M looming around the corner too. So they got some big series the rest of the way.
But that's in Athens, right?
I believe it is. Yeah. A&M has a brutal rest of the way, but most of those series are away from College Station. I feel like we say this with a lot of teams, but like Georgia's going to be fine. Like, I'm not really hitting the panic button, anything like that. They're just too good offensively, especially at home. So, they might tinker with some things here or there, the final month of the regular season, but like they're going to be fine. Like looking at their splits, I couldn't find home and away, but I did find lefty righty. So like obviously they hit righties better. They face more righties and lefties. So I like no need to panic or worry, anything like that. Georgia's going to be fine, mainly just because the offense is too good. But one thing you do need to keep an eye on and monitor is just the status of Ryland. You know, how healthy is he and what's he look like moving forward? Because if they lose him for an extended amount of time, like, you know, that can definitely have a big impact on their lineup.
Yeah, no, they've got the lineup depth to mix and match and be okay without him, but he has been their best player. My bigger concern is their pitching. I just don't think it matches up to the 5 teams in front of it. Again, lefties are a problem. I think Georgia threw one lefty all week, and that was Charlie Goldstein, and that was just for a very short spell. Liked what I saw of Leighton Finley this weekend. He's got a really good changeup that was problematic, and Curley is going to be a problem for a lot of teams and has been. But I think once you get into bullpen depth, I just don't think it matches up like everybody else's. And again, I'm the home road splits for Georgia are interesting. I think that Oklahoma series this weekend in Athens is going to be interesting because Oklahoma can give you some problems with style too, like Vandy and although Vandy didn't really small ball them a lot, it did a little bit, but
like to me,
anyway.
your three teams in like the same category: Oklahoma, Kentucky, and Vandy. Like they kind of have their own style, and then everybody else is totally different.
You read my mind, and the weird thing back to Georgia for just a minute is they got Kentucky, and they got it in Athens. And look, it's been a few weeks, and Kentucky was probably still gelling a little bit, but boat raced Kentucky in 2 or 3 games, and then lost one of those 10-7. But yeah. You were thinking the same thing I was. I think stylistically, those are 3 teams that you kind of group together in terms of how they play. Speaking of Vandy, the shocker of the weekend, sweeping a Georgia team that we all thought was a bad matchup. Vanderbilt just pitched out of its mind this weekend. J.D. Thompson had maybe the best career start he had. Connor Fennell, their now game 3 starter's been a problem. I don't know if there's an arm in the league like him with the off-speed stuff and the movement on it. And in between, they had Cody Bowker knocked out by the lights. So his start got abbreviated through no fault of his own. But, yeah, Vanderbilt really got some confidence this weekend. Also lost R.J. Austin. Its starting center fielder and its leadoff guy who's not been playing well lately, got a shoulder issue. And I wonder – I think he aggravated something or hurt it in Game 2, did not play Game 3 for the first time all year. But keep an eye on that one going forward.
Well, didn't you asked Corbin after the game, right? He just kind of said, "What? We'll get him checked and figure it out." Like he didn't really give a timeline on it, did he?
No.
Okay, yeah.
I read somewhere, I think, and this is alleged, that he was going to get him some gummies and see if that could work out his shoulder issue.
I know a guy.
Yeah, right down the road.
Big weekend ahead for Vandy at Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt has done. Here's what it's done on the road so far. It swept Florida and Gainesville. It lost 2 or 3 at Auburn, and who was the other one? Oh, Oklahoma, which it didn't play well in that one. So anyway, be interested to see what it looks like in Oxford this weekend. Vanderbilt gets that one. Vanderbilt's a national seed, I think, at this point would be its to lose with the RPI being 3 and the strength of schedule being 4, and it's not going to get hurt this weekend.
The matchup to watch, like obviously Vandy built around pitching. What a Hawks look like and Fennell with that Ole Miss lineup. Ole Miss is a lineup. It walks a lot, but it also strikes out a lot. I think Missouri only has more strikeouts than Ole Miss, so like that's either going to be like a recipe for success for Vandy or just a disaster. Like because it's a hitter friendly ballpark at Swayze Field, lots of home runs, not a lot of foul territory. So, and again, it's a clash of styles between Ole Miss and Vandy. So that's going to be a fun one.
I think in team offensive stat references moving forward, instead of DFL, which a lot of people know what that means, we need to go DLNM. That's dead last, not Missouri.
Might as well.
Yeah. Vanderbilt owned a few of those spots, but moved up a little bit this week. And I think the lineup's got more in it than it's shown. A couple of their freshmen, Johnson and Rigdon, really hit this weekend.
See, you read my mind there, Gummy Man. I think Brody Johnson's best baseball's in front of him. I think you go through the roller coaster of being really excited, being a freshman and getting to play for a place that you've dreamed about playing. Then you get the shock and awe of, oh my God, SEC pitching's a different thing. And then you get comfortable again. And I'm expecting him to kind of take off for the last month of this regular season.
Yeah. We had a clear top four in my mind. And as the votes came in, I think it was in yours too. In fact, I'm going to double check, but I think all of us had these same four teams in the top four. Just make sure I'm not speaking out of turn, and I'm not. Yeah, Vanderbilt was a consensus 5. And we all had these 4 teams other than one, I think, in different orders. But in my mind, your top 4, and I'll read them in alphabetical order because if you've watched the show, you know these are the teams left on the board. Arkansas, LSU, Tennessee, and Texas as your 4 left. We went Tennessee at 4. The Vols have now lost 2 of their last 3 series at home, which nobody saw coming. Marcus Phillips has got issues with runners on base. Tennessee has allowed, I think, 46 steals in conference play. Let me double check that.
I'd be curious to see how many are against Phillips. The majority of those have got to be against Marcus Phillips.
Ole Miss ran wild him on that inning, and did Kentucky steal 10 bases on Saturday? Am I remember that correctly?
Well, they had 16 total in the series.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I can see anybody struggling a little bit against Kentucky, especially if you can't hold runners on. The bigger thing to me, and again, I credit a lot of this to Kentucky. But guys, the hitting lately hadn't been quite what it was to start the year, where this team was run-ruling anybody and everybody, and some of that was on opponents. I get it. Mm-hmm. But Tennessee has hit double-digit runs, twice in its last 3 weekends, and those were 10 on the nose both times.
Here's kind of my thoughts on Tennessee, and I watched Tony V's post-game press conference. Shocker, he wasn't very excited or happy. But Tennessee, it just seems like they got the talent. They're just gonna have to settle on number 1, their lineup, and number 2, like their defensive options. I feel like they've kind of mixed and matched guys like way more than other teams in the league, especially on defense. Like, I think it gets to a certain point where you're just going to have to ride with what you got. And like this is who we're going with. This is what we're sticking with, especially since we're past the midway point of SEC play. So we know they got the talent on the mound and the lineup. But like right now, they're just not playing well. This was one of their worst weekends they've had, especially at home, in a while. Like Sam earlier went through all the lineup. Sam said it's the worst home series loss since 2019. So that's what the early Tony V days. Tennessee, like you got to remember, like Ole Miss had the lead in the 9th inning, and then Tennessee went on their rally, and then were able to end up winning it. So like Tennessee is essentially like a bad pitching change away from dropping their last 3 series. So I think they're going to be fine, but there is a point in the season where you're just going to have to make a decision and just kind of stick with it. Like, we want these guys in these spots defensively and in the lineup.
Is now the point where I mentioned that Liam Doyle's still a mother?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to the conversation of the prism of who do you want to play? Ain't nobody in America want to see Tennessee.
Yeah.
And all of your points are 100% valid, Graham, 100%. And that's on Tony V. I mean, Tony V has done so many great things about energy in the program, motivation, galvanizing an NIL tangent, acquiring talent, both in the portal and through recruiting. And all of those things are paramount to building a juggernaut. And that's what Tennessee is. I mean, it's still a defending national champion. Now you got to do some baseball stuff. Now you got to figure out, all right, here's who my shortstop is. Here's who's my three-hole hitter is. If Marcus Phillips can't hold runners on, then we got to figure that out. I mean, they got to get in the baseball lab. Otherwise, they're going to be disappointed when the brackets, when we start playing in bracket games.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other issue for them this weekend is that, in addition to Phillips's issues, Nate Snead looked kind of mortal. He's been their go-to guy that when it's the fifth inning of a game and it's one run, you need a guy to come in and close teams out. I mean, he just is so tough to hit with that 100, 101, whatever it is. Kentucky got to him yesterday late in that comeback. Yeah, and some of those arms that they're going to lean on after those guys are a little younger too. So we'll see where it goes. I think Jay's right. I think you're going to be very interested to see what the lineup is going to look like. They've gone to Ariel Antigua, who's a complete non-factor offensively, because they trust him to man short. And they moved oh goodness, who did they move to second this weekend? Dean Curley, who had some issues there too.
Fisher's
the shortstop for them last year.
Yeah. Fisher's going third to first. You know, you just kind of have to settle in a spot, you know?
Yeah, there's some things, there's some areas where they're definitely vulnerable. I don't know if LSU does the things that they're vulnerable to as much, but Vanderbilt certainly will in a couple of weekends. And you know, what a schedule to come to, guys. At LSU, Auburn, Vandy, at Arkansas in that order. So if Tennessee comes out of that playing well, it can feel very confident because it will have earned whatever it's gotten at that point. Let's go to LSU, Tennessee's opponent this weekend. The Tigers remain, I think, a definite national title contender. The offense has been a little bit more uneven than I would have thought. Scores 4 runs against Alabama in Game 2 and Game 3, but the pitching was pretty good this weekend, and the Tigers take 2 of 3 against Alabama after being swept at Auburn last weekend.
I just think this is a team that checks almost every box in that we're good at just about everything. I mean, I also wonder how much motivation. They're on path to be a national seed. They're on path for everything being in front of them to where, I mean, I'm not saying they're coasting. I'm not. But they're so good, and their resume, all three of the top teams, I'm going to try it one more time. All three of the top 3 teams in these power rankings are not only locked into, barring a disaster coming home, into national seeds, they are on everybody's penciled in bracket headed to Omaha.
How about the next 3 weekends for them? Tennessee, as I mentioned, and then at A&M, at Arkansas.
Jeez, that is a brutal stretch. Yes, of course, like they got to be thinking we get A&M when they're peaking as opposed to
right
like the first 3 weeks of SEC play. I think Jay said it best. Like LSU, they just kind of do everything consistently well. You know, their weaknesses aren't as big as other teams in the conference weaknesses. And anytime you can pitch it like they do, like you're going to have a chance. I trust the people in the lineup 1 through 9. Like, yeah, maybe their numbers aren't kind of what we anticipated what they would look like, but I still trust them enough. Like they've got guys that have been in this conference, been through these battles, like Bear Jones, Stanfield, a lot of SEC play. And to answer Brant's question, I mean, yeah, if LSU gets hot, which I think they will, and especially with the schedule that Chris just said, they certainly would have earned it. And I think they are in great shape to make it to Omaha. And by the way, with that schedule, you know, they can get to Omaha And if you play a team out of the SEC, you're like, okay, this is a little bit of breather. Like this is new life, a new look, a new style, and that can work in your favor too. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And the other part about that schedule is you're not feeling the pressure of having to sweep they go 500, which means they win half of those series on the way home. If LSU's entire path goes through Red Stick, Brant, to your question, I 100% see them in Omaha.
Yeah.
Like everybody else, because this is not a LSU specific need, but the guys whose dreams are getting to Nebraska, which that's a really, really bad dream in the grand scheme of things, because there ain't a whole lot in Nebraska unless you're an insurance executive or a college baseball player. These elite teams now need to figure out ways that they're going to get both games in their home ballpark.
Yeah, and I think LSU's going to be there. I thought this was maybe the best team in the country coming in the season. Mm-hmm. And I still think I'm going to give you the case for. I still think Einson and Anderson 1-2 is as good as anybody in the country, especially when those guys are on. You got guys out there in Shores and Schmidt who've been good as in those roles, but not great. Shores has been uneven, but the talent is undeniable. You got Zach Cowan, who's been a monster out of the pen. You got Kason Evans, who's been a monster as a closer. But behind that, you worry a little bit about the bullpen, but they got a lot of talent there. I think the lineup, you got Jones, Curiel, Milam, and Dickinson are mainstays. After that, they mix and match a good bit. And I think they can platoon, go lefty-righty with some talented guys. So I think maybe if you want to nitpick a little bit, you could say the lower half of the lineup might be matchup dependent. And I do think Anderson, it's kind of interesting after that 135-pitch complete game against Oklahoma, been a little bit more mortal. So keep an eye on that one.
Well, that makes sense, right? How many times in his life has he thrown that many pitches? So body takes a little bit of time to get used to that. And for the Omaha question, by the way, so here's the number. The last 10 years, at least 3 teams have made it to Omaha 8 times. So say that
again.
So the last 10 years, at least 3 teams or more from the SEC have made it to Omaha.
Oh, gotcha.
8 times.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, we'll move on to 2. Arkansas stays in that spot despite getting beaten at home by A&M. I think that says something about what we think of the way A&M is playing right now. And I think still confidence in an Arkansas team that has shown some weakness the last couple of weekends, albeit in really tough spots. But I still think is, again, on that short list of teams that could win it all.
It's also kind of a statement of 2, 3, and 4 all suffered home series losses, and kind of a statement on the level of the opponent there. Losing to A&M, okay, that puts you in a big team picture. And I think of those of 2, 3, and 4, the Tennessee loss was clearly the worst of those teams in this national elite conversation. And kind of reference what I said earlier in the chat. I think there are clear tiers in this league, even though the entire league, not for Missouri, is really doggone good at baseball.
Yeah, how about this? How good has Arkansas been? Prior to this weekend, they had won 12 straight SEC series. 12.
Man.
12 in a row. This was their first home series loss since 2022. So they're tough to beat there. They're still good. I just kind of think a couple things happen, and Van Horn talked about it post game. So the doubleheader I mean, Van Horn's words were his guys got tired, especially game 2. So that would make me a little nervous, if I'm an Arkansas fan. But A&M seems like they played a ton of doubleheaders, especially in conference games. I don't know how many Arkansas has had, but Van Horn said it, and it's the truth. Like, it's hard to beat the same team twice in a day in a doubleheader. Like, it's just hard to do that. That's why you see teams split so many doubleheaders. But Arkansas, they're going to be fine. And by the way, for Wood, Van Horn said the game plan for him, he was going to go 1 inning no matter what. Like, no matter how he looked, good or bad, 1 inning. He said that was the game plan. And, his first action in 6 weeks, and, A&M kind of won that matchup. So I think Wood, once he kind of gets his feet underneath him, like, he'll settle in. And I think, he'll just get more comfortable. But Arkansas, they're just too good on the mound, and they're better way offensively than what they have been. So they're going to be just fine. And yes, that LSU Arkansas series is going to be a fun matchup to watch.
My mistake. Yeah, that's at home. I caught that before we said it, but meant to correct that. So that leads us to number 1, Texas, which was, we had 2 pretty easy choices this week. I just continue to be super impressed by Texas's top 8 arms. Somehow they lose Max Blue, they get better. I don't know how that happens, but they have. I guess because their supporting guys have really hit. Mendoza and Gasparino. Kimball Schuessler was a guy this weekend. Rodriguez being back healthy, I guess he didn't miss a lot of time, has helped. Rylan Galvan has just been a holy terror on SEC weekends. And, oh, by the way, we saw Jonah Williams this weekend. So, yeah, hats off to Texas, a clear number 1.
I'm trying to look this up, but does anybody, be it in the chat or be it in the 3 squares here, who are smarter than me, remember if there's ever been a reliever who was SEC pitcher of the year? Because Volantis is
Kevin Kopps.
Yeah, Kopps, yeah.
And what his numbers are just eye-popping.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
a 105 ERA, an 0.73 whip, 34 innings and 15 appearances, but only 1 start. A 169 batting average against. I mean, that guy, and some of those, he's got 4 saves and 3 wins and 15 appearances, but there's not a stat coming in with the bases loaded in a swing game 2 in the 4th inning, and your team may have a 1-run lead, and then you pitch the next 3 and you expand the lead, but you don't get a save. I mean, he's doing things. That guy, man.
Mm-hmm. Is he the SEC Freshman of the Year?
It's him or Tyler Bell or who's the kid at Florida? First baseman.
Lawson.
Yeah. And let me look.
He's definitely in the conversation. You don't see a lot of freshmen step into this role. Like you'll see it as a starting pitcher, but not like coming out of the bullpen, like when he's out there ball game,
And to that point, Graham, he's a freshman and dealing with, if the Lawson kid at Florida knows where he's going to hit and he's going to play every game, you get in a routine. Volantis is just going out there whenever they dang well need him the most and delivers time and time again.
Yeah, I think to your freshman of the year question, I think it's Volantis. Those are the other 2 guys that came to mind. I'm sure I'm missing somebody. Auburn's got some guys. Bub Terrell might be in the running there. And again, this is off the top of my head, but I think it's Volantis because we're in an era that so favors offensive baseball. and he's pitching like it's the high mound era in MLB back in the 60s.
Yeah.
So
I'm trying to look for Texas. I haven't seen any news about Jared Spencer.
I was going to ask, like, did I miss something? Is something broken on Twitter? Because the last I heard, they kind of brushed it off and said, it's not a big deal.
Yeah,
but,
I just Googled it. Nothing on good old Google, but I'll look on Twitter right now.
Yeah.
Because that is significant for Texas.
Without question.
Because you lose one of your better hitters and position players, and they can't afford to lose one of their top arms.
Well, and this is where having built up a pretty good body of work, because they got a 3-game lead, I would have to think that they'd be the number 1 national seed. I think if you've got any concern at all, you rest him this weekend. Because, I mean, they can always throw Grubb. Yeah, because, again, it's getting to, well, you know what, it is A&M, so that does carry a little bit of an emotional that's an emotionally charged series for a bunch of reasons. But, man, you got to be smart.
Absolutely.
Your end goal if you're Texas is to bring home hardware at the end of June. And you could throw Max Grubbs in there. He started for them a year ago.
All right, Texas Rocks is all over it in the chat, Chris.
Okay, let's see it. Spencer's out. Okay, arm fatigue. Most believe it's worse. See, anytime a guy comes out like that and they say, it's just whatever, I'm always a little skeptical. And, boy, I don't want to hear that. But you do have Grubbs who's pitched in that role before and pitched pretty well.
Yeah, Texas Rocks fans believe it's much worse than the arm fatigue.
Oh, that's not good. Well, and here's another thing. You got Cade Bings throwing pretty well in the midweeks too. Not a strikeout guy, but a heavy ground ball guy. So, but the problem is that gives you 7 really good arms instead of 8 at this point. I mean, I say that. You got Thomas Burns kind of lurking back there and Duplantier and guys that have pitched before. And have some talent that they just haven't had to use because those top 7 or 8 guys have just been so good and so durable.
Yeah, but moving forward, if this is as bad as everybody fears, when you're talking about arm fatigue and you're talking about leaving in a mid-inning, to the big goal conversations, this is not losing a top 8 arm. This is losing your game 1 starter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which then has to slot everybody up depending on how you want to do it.
Well, I think you can slot down and still form a very competent rotation. You can go Wheelhouse, Harrison, Grubbs, but
you can slot down through the rest of SEC play. But if this is truly serious, you're not slotting down come regional or super regional time.
Yeah. No, I get it. I'm saying I think they can recover where they are. Now, the problem is you throw in one more injury and, then you've really cut into your pitching depth.
By the way, so Chad is all over this. Logan Crow, he is going to go get a second opinion. So anytime you hear that, that is not good news. But a fun story, though. One of y'all touched on it. Jonah Williams, 5-star football recruit, defensive back. Like, he's kind of settled in the left field spot for Texas. So, I mean, anything you get out of him is just going to be a bonus, right?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, and
not
I guess
only
that's
is it a bonus, but dear Lord, the embarrassment of riches, man. To be a Texas football DB and to be good enough to just slide in there and play for the number 1 baseball team in the country, man.
Yeah.
He must have taken my spot in the line when the good Lord gave out athletic talent.
He took a lot of people's
He went
spots.
through the line and then pushed me aside and then got in my spot in line and got it twice.
Yeah, and I guess Williams too. That's a lineup that if you're going to pick nits, didn't have a lot of lefties. That gives them a little bit more flexibility. Yeah, I'm just watching the Spencer news because I'll tell you, I think you got a lot of guys. I think you got a lot of guys out there just kind of living on the edge of Tommy John. I don't know if that's the issue, but okay, I think I can get by a little bit more. We'll manage the pitch count.
But also, like, it's getting to the point where, like, it used to be a death knell, like nail in the coffin, career over.
Sure.
Nowadays, a lot of guys are like, okay, let me get it over with. Like, let's blow the arm out, get the TJ surgery, and then I'll bounce back and still throw maybe even harder.
Well, even more than that, it's almost preemptive. I mean, it's like drinking orange juice before you feel the flu coming on for a lot of these kids who are flamethrowers. Let's go ahead and get it now, and then start the clock on. It's like an arbitration clock starting. Okay, I'll be back in 16 to 18 months, or even less than that potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, Spencer Strider came back in what? 12 and a half months?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the two biggest transition in sports medicine, well, the three. One are the gummies Chris is peddling. Go ahead and throw those back up.
If people join this late, they are going to get the wrong idea.
See,
I just want to throw that out there.
Chris is making a ton of money
gummies.
Standing in front of a pinwheel and slinging gummies out of Nashville.
Right.
But hey, don't tell anybody.
Sleep gummies. Just going to clear that up.
Really? You think that's clearing it up, Mr. Take a Nap Gummy? Do you? Take a nap and order a pizza gummy is what he's peddling.
Right.
The Tommy John and the ACL, to your point, Graham, they 100% were a death nail.
Yeah.
Now it's a extra year of rehab.
Yeah. Yeah, that series this weekend was going to be super interesting anyway. Now you got the dimension of how do they manage the pitching.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, you got to go to Arkansas next weekend.
Yeah. I feel like everybody was anticipating Ole Miss, Tennessee to have, like WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, something like that. Is it going to be this series this weekend? I mean, I doubt it, especially since it's in Austin, but you never know.
Yeah. Well, A&M's playing super well on the road too, guys. I mean, I know we got a series preview coming up, but later in the week. But you can't help but look ahead to that one.
Y'all alluded to it that maybe the SEC did this on purpose. If they did, they made a mistake. They should have done it on purpose the other way.
Well, they gave A&M football. They gave them football in College Station.
Yeah, I wonder if that was just luck of the draw or something else. I think probably for the sake of safety, that was probably the right call.
I still want Early to go out there and squeeze the knee.
I would love to have seen that in College Station. Yeah.
I want Early to strike the Danielson crane pose when they trade lineup cards. Just hit him with and then wha-pow! And then just turn this thing full on into Royal Rumble.
I think we need a ticket price check. You did that last night, Graham, or one of you guys. How many is that stadium seat?
I mean, enough. I think it's going to be. Let's look.
For non-general admission tickets, the cheapest ones I can see to order two are $124 each.
Jeez.
It's Monday, boys.
Yeah, I think that's going to go up. What's the capacity? Around 7,500.
Yeah.
With an announced attendance
standing room only
12,000.
Yeah. It'll be more than that.
Do they have like a parking garage or anything where you can see from the
Man, they got parking garages all over that campus. Like anytime, like in the fall when I went to go do like Texas volleyball or soccer or something, like I got to park in a parking garage and then like walk 1.5 miles to the facility. Like that campus is enormous. So yes, to answer your question, they are no short of parking garages all over that campus.
No, I mean, can you watch a game for one? Is what I'm saying. Like, is there a way you can get eyes without being in the stadium?
Let's see. Nope, not
Okay.
really. On that part of campus, no parking garages.
Yeah, those tickets are going to get more. I wouldn't have thought a couple of weekends ago that anything was going to upstage LSU Tennessee. I thought that would be the series of the year, but I don't think there's a question about it now.
Hopefully, the powers that be in Bristol and Charlotte are embracing the flex scheduling because we need eyeballs on this one. I mean, there are a lot of great SEC series this weekend, and not begrudging your favorite team out there, folks, because we appreciate all y'all watching. But this is like Dale Sr. being in the lead of a NASCAR. No matter who your driver is, you're paying attention to this one.
No doubt. And by the way, I did notice, Chris, over the weekend, they did send announcers to ballparks physically. They didn't do the remote broadcast.
Good. I wasn't sure about all of them, but maybe they listened.
Yeah, they are locked in, baby.
We're going to be locked in this weekend. Man, I can't wait to see these series. Tennessee, LSU, Texas, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Vandy. You got a bunch of really good ones. And we will be here. Here's what I think our schedule is going to look like the rest of the week. We got a special guest coming on at 1 today. I think we're going to record that. I'm just going to tease it. I'm not going to tell you, but LSU fans, you might want to watch this one. We will do previews probably Wednesday or Thursday. If I get the time, we may start doing a little bit of regional projections and having some fun with that as we get close to the postseason. And we'll do recaps Thursday night, I think Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. We took a little time off for the holiday this weekend for Easter and Good Friday, but we'll try to wrap those up as they are winding down over the weekend. So be sure to hit the subscribe button and enable your notifications so you get those. Also, if you do audio podcasts, go to your favorite audio podcast platform. Find us there, particularly on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating if you like the show. Leave some nice comments. That helps us get noticed there. Anyway, we're out for the Monday Power Rankings edition. If you're catching us late, we talked about your team somewhere else in the video. For Graham Doty, Jay Greason, I'm Chris Lee. Thanks for watching SEC Baseball Power Rankings here at Southeastern 16.